Good evening, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from March 11th. Has everybody had a moment to look at them?
Yes.
Any discussion? Okay, I make a motion that we approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second that?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. And we move on to additions and deletions. New business. Windham Hill Road repair contract for signatures. Is that this?
Should be the hiring town authority, or, sorry, attorney. I think you might be looking at the.
Oh, I'm looking at the minutes from the 11th. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Old business is hiring a town attorney. Just to give everybody a little background, last meeting we discussed hiring a town attorney. We asked Connie to call and find out who other towns used for attorneys. We came up with 3 names. One person did not return the phone call. One person was not available or didn't do municipal. And the third person hi Laura, the third person was available, was very interested. Connie got detail from him as far as, you know, how much the rate he would charge, whether there was a retainer, and it's $175 an hour with no retainer. And then Connie went ahead at our request and asked other towns that use this person, and they were all very happy with this person.
Allie, just so, that's just going through the additions and deletions. We have, that topic is actually farther down, it's after the other. So if we're gonna take a motion, I would wait until we get to that section.
Okay. So right now we're just,
And then sort of announcing what the additions are to the.
okay. Okay, then the other is the new business is the elementary school request regarding the common road. And another item of new business is Grace Cottage Town Hall use request Tai Chi classes. And then we can ask if there's any members of the public that would like to be heard.
Sure.
Hi.
Hi. My name's Allie. I used to be on this board.
Okay, I'm Allie too.
Right on. I'm here to I guess it kind of moves into the skate park committee, but that's what I'm here to represent. That was actually why I started being on this board originally, and then realized that it's much more fun to not be on the board and just talk to the folks that are on the board.
Okay.
On this side, it's fun. But happy to talk more about what we're trying to do, but really just wanting to let y'all know that we're gonna form a committee to get a feasibility and take the slow necessary steps to make a space for kids to have fun in this community.
Okay. And would you do that under the select board, or how would that operate?
There's more information to come. I guess what I can tell you now is that we're gathering to get those steps
Okay.
figured out. But yeah,
All right, well, good luck.
there's some other folks here too that are part of the committee, and when I sent the email out, I listed everybody's names, and they'll probably be.
We have that, yeah.
Right
I
on.
put it in the packet.
Okay.
Thank you for your
Super.
work.
Yeah.
Anybody else from the public about something different or want to add to that? No? Okay. So then, and then we go on to the warrants.
Okay, I'm running around on the agenda items looking for the skateboard thing. Okay, the warrants for March 26, 2023. Is that a mistake? 2023?
It's 2024.
Okay, should be 2024. Number one, to pay payroll in the amount of $14,971.22. To pay payroll taxes in the amount of $7,443.33. To pay general fund in the amount of $13,393.72. To pay highway fund in the amount of $6,064.83. To pay the highway equipment in the amount of $3,751.43. And to pay towards the gazebo in the amount of $326.30. The total for the warrants is $45,950.83.
Thank you.
We need a second. That motion.
So, second. Okay, then we move on to the highway report.
Yeah, we have to take a vote.
Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All those opposed?
Abstain.
Okay. The treasurer's report is the M&T bank statement, and it has a figure of $1,478.43. But then it says available $758,459.89, and then the running total of $30,000
In the checking.
in the checking. So, thank you.
Is there a discussion on this?
Do we need to,
Okay, it's a report. I don't know.
it's a report, but if you want to discuss anything, we can.
Okay, I just have a question regarding, so there are two different bank statements. One regards the certificates of deposit, and the other one is the ledger that you just cited. And I'm wondering if the monies available in the M&T Bank that you cited are separate from the certificates of deposit? Or is there an overlap? I mean, is some of that money encumbered in certificates of deposits, or I'm trying to understand what monies are there.
The certificates of deposit are different than the running balances.
Okay, so that's an addition. Excellent. And then could perhaps Connie could clarify what is the Townshend reappraisal fund?
My understanding is, and Helen is on Zoom, she could speak to this a little better, but there is a requirement, and the state gives money to make sure that we are putting aside enough money to do our next reappraisal.
We are mandated to do reappraisals, and this is a way to save money to do the mandated reappraisal.
And Helen, if you want to come off Zoom, she knows like where the money, I think some of it comes from the state and some of it we raise, and that.
Yes, so every year the state sends $8.50 per active parcel and an additional dollar that goes into the reappraisal fund. It's not allowed to be used for anything else except for, basically it's for maintaining the grand list. Which is what the listers do. We have, our CLA and our COD have hit a point where we have been, we're going to be required to do a total townwide reappraisal. We'll get notice of that in July probably, and then we have 90 days to tell them what our plan is. So right now, we're in the process of exploring the different reappraisal companies. Typically, they charge about $125 per active parcel. So it's an expensive thing, but the legislature is changing the rules so that all the towns will have to do a townwide reappraisal every 6 years. They've passed that. Right now, they're in the process of figuring out how it's going to work.
Okay, thank you, Helen. So it's property reappraisal. I just didn't know what we were reappraising.
Yeah, that's all the parcels in town.
Thank you.
I got a question or a comment. It would be nice if the person on the Zoom, before they took the position on the select board, took and did their due diligence and learned what the different checking accounts were for, what the reappraisal was for, and the other stuff, instead of coming to the meeting and then asking questions that they should know already before they took the position.
Well, I did
Well, it's a deep
have
situation,
quite a number of
and we don't wanna
questions,
go
and I
that
was
far.
told at the last meeting that the select board members could not discuss amongst each other except during the meetings, and that I should bring my questions to the meeting, which I'm doing. Thank you.
Most people took and did their due diligence before they got on the board and learned what the different avenues were,
Well, we all get bored sometime.
you know?
Okay, go,
Just don't forget the hiring report.
okay.
Jeremy gives it, it's under reports.
It's under what?
It's under reports, and Jeremy gives it.
And does Jeremy want to give a highway report?
Yep. So FEMA, we had our first two applications signed and reimbursement will be coming shortly. After this weekend storm, it was a long and lengthy one. We had quite a few breakdowns, so I'm currently 2 or 3 trucks down. I should have 2 of them up and running tomorrow morning. The good news is I think mud season's over. Just, of course, the roads are rough, but now with the snow, we can't really do much with them until the snowbanks subside a little bit. And that's about it.
Thank you. And then we can move on to the town clerk's report. And Alenka took in $904.20 in the 2-week period. And it's all laid out very nicely and easy to understand. Thank you, Alenka. Then we move on to old business. We are going to discuss the grant writing position that was voted on the meeting of 2/27. How should I go about this? Shall I make a motion or I have to make a motion to open it up for discussion, right? So I make a motion that we hold back on the grant writing position for reasons that we will discuss. And do we have a second?
I think that would qualify as a negative motion. I think
You can't make a negative motion.
Accept it, and then when it comes to the vote, you would deny it or rule it down.
That's the floor, that's the public, it's up to the board.
We have to make a motion to have a discussion.
It has to be made in a positive motion. You can't
exactly
make
what
a
it
negative
said.
motion, period.
You know what, when you went to a town meeting and you ran your mouth about every single.
Point of order.
Nobody said a word to you about it, but now somebody
Rob,
talks.
point of order, please.
If you don't like it, too bad.
I make the motion that we open to the floor a discussion on the grant writing position that was moved on the 27th of February.
I second the
Second.
discussion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. So we will open it up for discussion. I will say the two primary parts that I feel, and we can have other people do the same. One is we have no money budgeted for such a position, and the second part was we didn't advertise it, and it's been our policy to advertise positions so that people can have so that everybody can have a shot at the job and we can pick the best person for the job. And as I said at the last meeting, I don't think it was done in any ill intent, but I also don't think it was done correctly, and I wanted the board to decide on that, how we should go forward.
I'd like to agree with Allie that, or at least concur that I don't believe that there was any ill intent at all, and this is not a discussion concerning the qualifications of Katie Morrow, who volunteered according to the minutes to fill the position. It's simply a matter of how that unfolded at the meeting. The minutes from February 27th reflect that the discussion began with Katie volunteering to fill the role, general agreement that the role was needed, and then somehow it moved on to approving that she be paid $17.54 an hour at 15 hours max a week for the work. So it morphed into a paid position from a discussion about something that is needed, but the process was not done correctly and could pose possible conflicts of interest according to the handbook.
Rob.
Thank you. Thanks, Allie. Thanks,
You're
Kate. Rob Swiger, 2996 Windham Road. I came to support the previous board's decision. Just to kind of explain where we came from, we received a proposal from Katie, who has experience doing this. She's been volunteering doing this for us for a little while now. We received a proposal in the same way that we would anything in our packets, and then we discussed it at a publicly warned meeting. So as far as the conflict of interest or any kind of integrity questioning, that I feel like answers that. There are also no statutes in the state, nor is there a policy for Townshend when it comes to hiring outside of announcing it publicly and posting it. So just to explain where we were coming from, I appreciate your candor in understanding that there's no ill intent, obviously. Katie was very willing to do it. She offered us a very unique proposal at a great rate, and it was discussed at a publicly warned meeting, so that was kind of where we were coming from. And I hope that adds to your decision.
It does.
making.
Where would the monies come from for starting this year when we didn't even put it in a budget for next year? I'm just curious.
Right, I think that it falls into any essential job, like any category, including a cleaner, somebody who's grant writing, somebody who's going to do work with the town crew. You know, it would fall into a very essential role.
And we do have those in the budgets, and they've been voted on at town meeting where this wasn't. So that was my concern of what line item would this money come from? Where is it in our budget?
Sure, and I think that this particular grant position was kind of a, the flagship. We were going to figure out how that went. There are opportunities for grant writers to include their wage in the grants. That is an option with some grants, not all of them. So I think that exploring it, we felt that it was a good decision to move forward with that and feel it out, because it is a really good rate for a grant writer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you for that background. I didn't catch your name, but thank you for your background. I was working strictly from the minutes of the February 27th meeting.
I'm glad. Thanks for the opportunity to explain where you're coming from. I just want to kind of defend the previous board. I know there was a lot thrown out at the town meeting. People questioning our integrity, people saying that it was a flagrant disregard to the policies, and there is no policy when it comes down to it. So I just want to make it known that everybody who came before you guys worked really hard. I know you guys are working really hard to catch up, and you will continue to. So I think the camaraderie is really something we can focus on, and it'll move this forward so we can actually get work done.
I agree with you in that we all should work together.
Yeah. That's really all I had to say.
Thank you, Robert.
Laura has her hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, Laura.
I understand what Rob is saying, but it doesn't take away the fact that any other job that has ever been done in this town that's, listed, like cleaning or working at the dump or doing this, doing that, is posted. And people do have a chance to try to get the job. It's just the whole way it was done definitely brought some questions up to a lot of people. People should have an equal opportunity to try for any job in this town that's not elected. And also, as you said, where's the money coming from? It was done very quickly, out of the blue, within 10 or 15 minutes. It's like, it just seems as if maybe people did do due diligence, how or when, I don't know, because there was no meeting. It was never brought up at any previous meeting. So, as Kate says, I thought that people were supposed to do whatever discussing they needed to do concerning town business at the select board meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Rob had his hand, then you, Haley.
I want a question. Rob Wright, 59 Greenwood Drive, Townshend, Vermont, 0553 is, we put it in a 6-month period to see if this works. This wasn't a set in stone, good, her job is good for however long. We've sat here and listened to Laura Richardson carry on about how there needs to be grants for this. We've listened to Bob DeServo carry on about how there needs to be grants for this. All these people about grants and grants and grants. And as soon as we take and do one thing to have somebody write a grant, we run into opposition. And it's for $17.55 an hour for 15 hours a week for a 6-month trial period. And to think that people like Laura are in such an outrage over this decision made in 15 minutes is ludicrous and it's foolish, and you're getting to the point where it's petty.
Yep.
You're talking about petty. If you do the numbers, you piss away more money arguing and carrying on about foolish stuff than there would ever be any problem with the amount of money paid. So to listen to the stuff that comes out of some people's mouths is just, for me, I look at it and think to myself, I put more time into volunteering and doing stuff for free in this town than she has ever done ever for this town.
Point of order, we don't have to point hands at other people.
Foolishness.
Okay,
I
thank
never
you.
even said one thing about who it was. You can take her and put it into
And
half the
you
people
were
here
pointing
could be
and-
here.
thank
So
you.
don't tell me I'm attacking one person,
I just said thank you.
because I'll attack
The
people
reason-
across the
The
board
reason,
at this
the
point.
reason this may have come up as a discussion item for the select board may be a consequence of the changeover in the select board, and that we have new select board members, and we are simply entering into this discussion at the point of the February 27th minutes when that motion was passed, and we lack a lot of this background information since some of these discussions were not held in a select board meeting. So it's an unintended consequence, and I don't think any of us are in favor of pissing away money, over scrutinizing petty things.
Thank you. Haley, you had your hand up.
No problem.
Never mind. Okay.
I want to point out that this was not an out of the blue discussion at that meeting. It was on the agenda, and it was a warned meeting open to the public. Laura, you spoke in support of it when you were asked, when Sherwood asked
I said nothing.
Nick, and he asked John Evans, who was also here. Yes, you did. You said, yes, I support that.
I do not.
It's
I said
on,
nothing.
it's on the video. So, there's minutes written, and then there's also televised. The meetings are also televised. Our agenda can be changed up until the point that the meeting begins. Actually, there were additions and deletions. That's what that section of the agenda is actually for. The inference that any of this was going on behind the scenes, which I do appreciate that people have said this was not ill intent, absolutely not. But There's this idea right now that board members can't speak at all, that you cannot move the business of the town forward if you are not having discussions about certain things that go on with moving the business of the town forward in preparation for the next meeting. And if you read the open meeting law, it clearly states that you are allowed with other board members ahead of the next meeting to discuss documents that will be discussed at the next meeting. None of this was out of the blue. These are conversations that have been happening progressively over time. And so you can flip-flop decisions, I support that. Come to the meetings and discuss that. But to make inferences, spread gossip, any of that about the way that it went is ridiculous, because it went the way that actually I said I would like to make this proposal to the board. This is exactly how it happened. I said I've been taking information from members of the public and people that have been coming to the meetings about a grant coordinator position. I would like to make a proposal. And Connie told me, okay, if you want to make a proposal, then you need to have a scope of work. You need to have what your hours might be. You need to have what your wage might be. And also what we would like to see an education component for you and for possibly the highway coordinator if he needs that. And so I went back to my drawing board and I drew up my proposal as opposed to just bringing it up as a discussion in the meeting. And it was put on the agenda and it was discussed in turn. That's exactly how it happened. And if you want to go back, you can read the minutes. The minutes are a little bit more about the motions and things like that. That's what minutes exist for, and they go on the record for that. And then otherwise you can watch it televised. I watch them all the time just to see what was said so I can have a little bit clearer of a head. That's
And
all.
most people that wanted to pay attention and learn watched it before they got on the board or before they started coming down here and signing up.
Yes, Nick.
So I just want to add a little context from the handbook, and really this, to me, it seems, above board, and it does not seem like there was any sort of impropriety. I think there's this general, because of the fuzziness that Rob Swiger mentioned in the law, there's this general sort of tending to shy away from things and just to avoid it at all costs, but it is not wrong to do this. You absolutely did include this as a warned agenda item. Maybe members of the public feel that there should be a different process or approach to soliciting bids for these sorts of jobs in the future. I don't think that necessarily invalidates what was done in February. And again, this is also at the casual labor rate that is selected by the town, voted on by the town at town meeting. So this is also kind of one of those lower significance. This is not a salary that you just proposed and the board voted to approve you.
And I agree with that. What I have, the biggest part I have is, had you done it and we got it in the budget to be voted on at town meeting, I wouldn't even be speaking now. I'd be like, that's fine. That was the part to me that where's the money coming from? When you look through all the line items, where are we gonna get this money? We can deficit spend, but that's not how we usually do things. We usually get it in the budget. It goes before the town meeting. So.
I appreciate Rob's reminding us that this was a temporary trial, 6-month go. At a concept that is needed by the town. And given that it's a 6-month limited trial, and it's not a permanent position, I no longer have any reservations or hesitations now that I've learned that there was considerable background discussion of this that I was ignorant of. Why was I ignorant of it? Because I wasn't watching the videos, and I did not believe I had the opportunity to discuss this prior with other select board members.
I have a question.
I know otherwise now.
Allie?
Katie, I was just curious, did you end up writing the grant for the gazebo project? Is that something you did?
We are discussing that further. We've hit some snags, but I have continuously worked on it since January.
We discussed, I think, Rob Swiger, you had mentioned that some grants have the salary built in. Was it you that said that?
Yeah, either the grant writers or the facilitators of the grant. I know that they're very specific with, individual ones. Katie would know more about that, and Connie would know way more about that than.
Could we morph this position into something like that so that it wouldn't have a line item expense?
It depends on the grant.
It would limit the amount of grants you
A
can
lot of
apply.
town grants, Sean Morrow, 1676 Windham. A lot of town grants, in my knowledge, need a select board member to be a component of the, either the grant writing or the grant ownership. But they also, because of that relationship, don't typically pay like a private grant. Much like highway grants tend to do that. The grant writer typically gets paid from the town and outside of the grant on those. There are some, but they're very few and far between, just because the delineation between state and the relationship between the private corporation giving out the money.
Because that way we could have it now, we could get possible grants, you could work, and it wouldn't be a budgetary concern.
And I think that what we had also discussed at that meeting, it wasn't like, okay, now we're done, Katie, embark on your mission. It was not like that. It was, we're going to have discussions further about how this is gonna sort out. Is it gonna fit into fiscal year 2024? Is it gonna fit into fiscal year 2025? Are we gonna start right now? But we wanted to have the option of starting as soon as possible. That's what it seemed like anyway when Rob made his motion about starting at the point of town meeting and beyond, just to have the option so that we could continue these discussions to figure out how we were going to, it's also why we had said up to 15 hours a week, because that also very much would depend on the project. And it would depend on projects that were decided essentially by the select board. The select board had left this discussion saying that they were going to basically be part of the decisions of the projects that were, of the grants that were gonna be worked on, so that then we could move forward. I wasn't just like a lone wolf finding these things and attacking them, so.
The proposal also includes monies for education about grant writing, and so it seems to me that some of the questions we're asking about whether or not the cost of the grant writer could be written into the grant itself as overhead are to be answered through that education. So I'm comfortable with making a motion. I don't even know that we need to make a motion since it was approved before. I think that we can just conclude the discussion and let that item stand as approved. Is that correct?
I'm not sure.
You called it into question as to what the circumstances were, and you put it on hold. So you need to settle that question. And then you need to give the direction moving forward.
We did not approve the minutes, and we did put that position on hold.
So you've got to answer that question.
Mm-hmm. And that's
so we need a motion to approve the minutes, and in doing so, that would unfreeze that situation.
No, I don't know that that's true.
No.
I think you can approve the minutes, as we discussed last meeting. You can approve minutes even if everybody doesn't agree with every nuance of the minutes. It's just approving that that's what transpired.
And that's next on the agenda anyway, so I think that's not part of this
So my
discussion.
understanding is that we had a motion on the table to discuss,
Right,
not hold, not pull back, but to discuss.
right.
So we've had the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
It's, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like there is no motion to change the grant position currently.
That's correct, and that did come up at last meeting.
Well, we've only discussed, there's no motion for that.
Right, so, yeah.
So,
I think if we want to conclude discussion and then we just keep moving forward with the decisions that were made and accepted at the 227 meeting, that is acceptable. I don't think that we need to set a new course necessarily.
so are you saying that then we'd be accepting the grant writer position without knowing where the funding's coming from?
Well, I think the board already did that.
You would be accepting the board's decision on 227, which is to create this position. I don't think there was any real discussion about it.
Rob Wright has his hand.
A comment, just to get down to the numbers, for a 6-month trial at $15 at $17.55 an hour for 15 hours a week works out to $6,844.50 for that 6-month period. I'm pretty sure as a town, with the knowledge that I have of what we've got going on here, that the $6,844.50 is a pretty good bang for the buck if one grant is written and is accepted, is totally worth it. Never mind multiple grants, but to find that funding, I don't think is gonna kill our town. And I don't think it's gonna put hardship on anybody or raise the tax base to a point, or the tax rate to a point of a tipping of any point. I think it's positive all the way around, and that's why, we approved, or that's why I made the motion and then the board approved it, is because it's such a minuscule amount of money for the benefit that could be out there, that it's like, at some point you're stepping over a penny to pick up a dollar, or you're stepping over a dollar to pick up a penny. And I like to go, over the penny and pick up the dollar.
We taken the discussion, the purpose of the discussion was twofold: to understand the process by which the proposal and the acceptance of the proposal came about, and then the question of where the money was coming from. No one is debating whether it is the smart thing to do to have the grant writer, and no one is debating as to whether that is a very low cost for such an important service.
What's the discussion over there?
Yes. It's a 6-month trial period, correct? Is there any way to do like a caveat or something that states that if no grants are gotten at all in that 6-month period, it would be re-upped as far as whether it's going to be some position that...
We could say whatever
that's pretty much what they said at the meeting. They said
that's what trial means.
Yeah, that's what it means. It means like we discuss it again. And I'm sure there's gonna be plenty of discussions as the process happens. We're new at this. We have not had this grant coordinating position in this town before. And it's gonna be a learning curve for everybody on how this might work.
The only thing I'm thinking, and then we can move along, is would it behoove us to put this on hold and have you take the course and find out what's available to us? Are there positions that your salary could be paid for? And then move forward? Or is it the flavor of the board that we should just move forward?
I think we should just move forward, given the fact that there's a lot to be learned, and the educational component of this proposal will help us learn some of those very things.
Yes?
So the state of Vermont has over $600 million available, and Windham Regional has got, I forget how many dollars to look at the grants that we might be eligible for. So timing is pretty much, let's get this done as quickly as we can. And again, the whole idea is to help town out. So with that money available, let's jump on it.
Get on it.
Yep.
Motion to close discussion?
Second?
I'm sorry, the motion again,
To
please?
close the discussion.
Second.
No, I did a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I am not gonna vote for the motion simply because if you put the thing on the table, it has to be taken off the table before a new motion can be introduced. Now, what you're saying is everything that was discussed on the previous meeting, the board that decided this, was put on hold. We heard now wait a minute. We had an entire diatribe during the end of town meeting about how many rules, how many regulations, how many whatevers were violated. There wasn't any. It was just somebody running his mouth for the sake of running his mouth. Matter of fact, 2 people. So, in this particular case, you have a table. You need to take it off the table and introduce a motion from this board, not the other board, so that when it comes to town meeting next time and you have the same people running their mouth, you can say it was approved by 2 separate boards.
Well, what we did was we had
I
a move
understand
to
that, Ellie.
discuss.
I understand that, Ellie. I
So
know the
that we-
rules probably better than you do. But the point is you tabled it last meeting. You can't just pick it up without resolving that.
And that's why
table.
we're having discussion, and that's why the next one is
All
the
right,
minutes
go ahead.
from the 27th.
Opposed.
So then can I make a motion to untable what we previously
It's already
tabled so that this can move forward?
It
Read
wasn't
Robert's
tabled to my
rules
knowledge. I
first.
thought we passed over the minutes.
We passed over the minutes, and we said we were gonna find more information about the grant writing position,
Which we're doing.
and which we're doing. And now we can make a motion about the grant writing position, so this board has input on that as well as the last board. And so I make a motion that we concur with the last board and offer Katie the position as stated in the February 27th minutes.
Seconded.
Second, all those in favor?
Alright.
Thank you guys, thank
Connie,
you
I'm
Kate
abstaining.
and Allie, good job. As you're catching up, I really appreciate your honesty in the process too, it helps a lot.
Well, we all have to learn, right?
Yep.
So, okay, so then we go on to the minutes of the 27th. And, Connie, do we have to accept those minutes since we passed over them? So I would make a motion to accept the minutes from February 27th. And we need a second.
Second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Wait a minute, you skipped a spot called discussion. Why are you now approving minutes when you weren't the board at the time?
Because we were supposed to approve them last time on the
Well, how can you-
11th.
How can you do that?
They passed over them last meeting.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is none of these people, at least 3 of them, weren't there. So how are
He
you
was there.
acting?
That's why we passed
Yes,
over them.
you were at the, yeah.
They may
Okay.
have also had the opportunity to view them on BCTV. I think some people have viewed them.
Okay. I think you need to clarify that. That other people have, that there've been other means from which they're reviewing the notes. Because if there weren't they weren't people here other than him, you have no idea.
And we did information gathering in between last minute meeting. I mean, I even offered to meet with you at one point, Katie. And so we've been doing our due diligence, trying to catch up, trying to figure out what was discussed and thought of. And that brought us to here with an approval for a position, so congratulations.
Thank you.
I think I made a motion to approve the minutes of the 27th of February. Did you?
Nick seconded.
Oh, Katie seconded it,
Seconded.
and all those in favor? Aye. Okay, Stone Arch Bridge.
Did everybody vote? I didn't hear.
Yeah,
Yeah, all 5.
Okay.
we move on to the Stone Arch Bridge Insurance Research Update.
Should I give that?
Yes, please.
At the last select board meeting, we had several questions regarding does our insurance provider weigh in on the discussion about what type of railings? And so Kate was appointed the select person that was going to be the point person on that, and I contacted VLCT with those questions, those 3 questions that we had. They're researching it, and their person who goes around and views properties and structures is viewing the bridge next week and will get back to us.
Was this the question about whether the railings need to be crash tested? Is that specific
Whether or not
question?
we're required to have railings, whether or not they have to be crash tested, and do they require a structural engineer to design them?
Yes, okay, I remember. Jeremy wants to say something.
Jeremy?
It's actually Thursday, I have a meeting with them.
This Thursday?
This Thursday morning, I'm meeting with Wade and Shearer from the LTC to discuss the parapets, basically. So we'll know more information after that.
Okay.
Can I bring up, we're meeting tomorrow with Brian Post, our contractor for the Stone Arch Bridge project, to discuss the parapets details and see if he's come up with anything. Connie and I and Brian are meeting tomorrow. So we should have some more information.
Is Jeremy involved in that as well, or?
No, this
Okay.
was just about the design, well, I mean, Jeremy's more than welcome to
Yeah.
come. It's about the designs to see if there's any way to reduce costs.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's at, it's at 9?
11.
11?
11 tomorrow.
Okay, old business, Windham Regional Resiliency Zones meeting update. Yes.
No, sorry.
So you folks, Nick, you?
Yes, so we met on March 21st. Myself, Connie, members of the Planning Commission, were all there. And really, it is a new initiative from Windham Regional with Green Mountain Power. The purpose is to increase the electrical resiliency of our grid. So in the event of power outages, how can our grid sustain connection? And they are really just getting started. They have been basically piloting with Athens, and then Townshend is their next town on the list. And so this was just to kind of initiate contact, gauge a little bit of interest, but there was no commitment in either direction. A lot of these projects they propose are going to be really up to the discretion of GMP, but they might involve things like the Tesla Powerwalls. That will be at no cost to any residents. They'll just be installed. They mentioned that there is also the potential for doing these microgrids using solar arrays or other renewable energy sources. And yeah, so their next step is to do some more research with GMP, breaking our town up into the circuits and researching what the outages are like in the town and kind of where the area is most affected. And then they'll be reviewing town plans, hazard mitigation plans, and trying to harmonize across those. And so then several months down the line, they'll be reaching back out for input from the public as well.
Okay, good, thank you.
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
Something, I know that this is down the line and not a thing that's happening right now in terms of like breaking any dirt up and digging things and stuff, but we are fresh off a terrible experience with GMP digging up our roads. And communication wise, Ray could probably speak more to that, but it was awful. They came here, told us that they were gonna take power lines off of people's properties and they'd get their land back, and that they were gonna put the power lines towards the centers of the road or wherever they needed to with like less impact to our landscape and things like that, which I thought that was great. The way they went about it was not great. And I think that we need to keep that in mind as these discussions progress, is the accountability of them. Because they definitely didn't do what they said they were gonna do, and they didn't do it the way they said they were gonna do it, and it caused our residents awful headaches in terms of commuting. I mean going around for a very long time, months at a time, and the miles they had to drive and towns they had to go through just to get to work 5 minutes from their house. And I think that this is definitely gonna be part of that. We would have to keep that in our minds. How are you gonna do this to where it doesn't affect our residents that way again? Because I don't think the town would be happy about that.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring that up as part of this ongoing discussion.
Definitely, thank you.
And I would urge you to maybe I'm trying to think of when, I thought it was in October, maybe the summer, or we started in October last year with the digging, and they said it was gonna be done before the snow fell, so.
Started in August. And it's
August.
supposed to be done
By October. So if you wanna go back and look at some of the info too from that, I would urge you to do that, because it was a really big headache, and it was really actually dangerous for a lot of our residents. They were closing entire roads when there was supposed to be a lane open, things like that, so.
There was an incident with an ambulance
Right.
right to a house.
It was awful, so, just wanted to bring that up.
Laura had your hand up?
Well, I also wanted to mention the Tesla batteries. The Green Mountain Power was pushing for people to get like rebates and stuff to get the Tesla batteries. So I did some research. The batteries, if they help you get those batteries, they can take the juice from those batteries whenever they want. And you are paying to replenish those batteries. And oftentimes when they take the juice from the batteries is when people don't have any power. So it's something to keep in mind. And, it sounds wonderful, but if you don't have the power for yourself when you need it, the only way you can get it is if you buy the battery outright. If you try to get any help from Green Mountain Power at all, they're going to tap into it. So something for people to be aware of.
Yeah, I think that is very important. Oh, thank you, Katie and Laura. And they, from Windham Regional, were saying that even this microarray, that would be something that's owned by GMP. So a lot of this is still coming top down from GMP. So I think there's a lot of room for us to bring these up in public discussion when they are reaching out to the town. But this is also a very new process for them. Maybe there's also some room for us to put some stipulations in how these processes will go. But yeah, definitely we will keep these things in mind as we move forward with it.
Thank you for doing that.
As they do more and we hear more about what they're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, are we on to hiring town attorney?
So in the packet is the, just the information about the attorneys that I reached out to. It looks like it.
Hi, good. I haven't had any calls, I guess.
Sorry.
Okay, should we open discussion?
I think you may want to make a motion. and then
Yeah, I'm
have
trying to
you-
see where it is, Connie.
Right after the last minutes.
Thank you. So right after the minutes of the 27th?
Yeah.
Okay. Here it is, thank you. Okay, so there were, do we have to make a motion to discuss? I make a motion that we discuss the lawyer position and the people that were researched.
Seconded?
Hold. If you're making a motion just to discuss it, you're gonna have to start all over again with a motion to accept it.
Correct.
So the motion would be to put forward a lawyer for hiring, and then it'll be up to voting as to whether that person's hiring or not, as opposed to just a discussion, because the discussion is an element of the motion. So basically, the motion is, do we entertain whoever this person is as a potential candidate for hiring as a town attorney?
And then you can discuss
that.
Okay.
Right.
within that motion.
Because otherwise you're gonna start all over again.
Okay. So I make a motion that we hire a town attorney as per our information received. Second?
Do you want to put his name to the name?
Well,
Yeah.
are we, but then basically,
One no longer does municipal, one never got back to me.
but shouldn't that be part of the discussion, so that it's
Okay.
part of the minutes? So we have 3 people that we entertain, and we're going to decide on a town attorney, so that's the motion.
So just make sure I understand the motion. The motion is to hire a town attorney,
Correct.
and is somebody seconding that?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
We have to do discussion.
Now,
Yeah, but in favor of the motion. don't we?
No, we gotta discuss first. and then
Okay. So we discussed that Lawrence Salson from Bellows Falls was somebody that people had recommended, but they never called back. Then there was Lori Rowell from Brattleboro, who also was recommended, but her business has stopped taking municipal clients. The only person that was available to us was Steve
And, that's an N, sorry.
Ann Kunda. And Connie called 3 different towns that utilize his services, and they all spoke very highly of him. He seemed to have a good rate of pay compared to other lawyers, and he had no retainer fee, so that was attractive as well. It was $175 an hour and no retainer fee. So, discussion?
Is it my understanding that our previous attorney, not the one that we just had for a second, but the one before that we've had for some time, that we paid a retainer and that was it? We didn't pay him hourly, or did we do
I'm not
both?
aware of a retainer. I thought that we paid him when he did work for us.
Yes.
Okay. I
That
thought
was
it
Rich Carroll.
Okay, is this comparable? Do you feel like this amount is comparable?
Yeah, it's about the same, I
Yeah.
think. I think it's the same.
$175 an hour?
Yes. But we used one so rarely that, it was negligible. They were always brought in at the last moment with something. And, yeah, that's about the same amount, I believe.
Can you give an example of something we might ask this lawyer that we don't ask the VLCT?
When we took custody or took control of the common, we needed an attorney to draw those documents up and see that they were in compliant with state law. If there was an incident that we used Carol for, where it was the purchase of a property, and there was some of that property's taxable. The way it was sold, it affected the tax that you could set on the entire piece of property. That type of thing. They're pretty much just civil things because we don't have any criminal issues here. Not to say that there aren't crime, but there aren't any criminal, there's nothing that the town has to bring in form of a criminal complaint. So it's all civil issues.
Thank you.
Which is all mostly worse, but.
Okay.
Has anybody had, my question would be, has anybody had any conversations with this guy?
Connie
I
has.
spoke to one.
Do you think he would be willing to come and sit down, even if it's in an executive session, to discuss? Because we can hire somebody off a piece of paper and they can turn into a total idiot.
Well, that's why Allie had me check with Ludlow, Rockingham, and Grafton about their experience with him. And they said that he's very knowledgeable, he's got a lot of experience. He's he engages, he's very busy, so you just have to schedule your work in advance and not expect it to be taken, or taken care of off the top of the head. But I spoke with the town managers that work with him in those towns.
If for some reason, is it okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
If for some reason we weren't happy with him, is there any obligation to him for a certain amount of time, or could we just move on to the next?
We pay him by hour.
Yeah.
And there's no retainer or anything,
No.
so it's not like he'd have some of our money already, so. I feel that because we have very little use for the lawyer, and because there is no retainer, that we could move on this.
Just a question. In this email, the references Bob Fisher. Have we talked to him at all?
So we used Fisher. Well, so people do like Bob Fisher. We had him briefly and he was not, he did not get back to us.
We didn't have experience then.
He's who we just had to get through when we did
And
comments.
it's actually not even settled, because our question was, is we need a PTTR to complete the common. So I have not even filed our deed for that yet because of, we need this question answered.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
yeah. And Connie sent lots of emails and calls.
Yeah. Understood.
You got it?
Yes,
Have we ever hired this particular lawyer before?
no,
You sure? I think he was the guy that was here before Larry Slayson was. And my other question would be, what happened to the guy from Dover that we had for a minute? Just recently.
That was Bob Fisher.
That was Bob, we had Bob Fisher recently.
But what happened to him?
We were just discussing, he
He
didn't
didn't get back to
respond to like many emails and questions.
If I'm not mistaken, Ancuna at one point was a representative for the people that own Liz Jones's place on Back Windham Road. And we went into a situation with the Supreme Court over a decision about a BCA issue up there. And he was their lawyer as well as, or had been their lawyer and was our lawyer, and never brought it out onto the table until, I'm pretty sure it's the same guy, not positive, until after the whole entire court hearing was there. And this was back in the COVID time, because we were in Zoom meetings, and it went from there. And that's when we ended up with Larry Slayson. And we might want to look into that, but I believe that's how it went. And I don't want to bring up history about things, but
Well, we can research if the memory that you have of that history is correct.
Rob, are you, Rich Carroll, are you thinking of Rich Carroll? Because Rich Carroll represented kind
we've
of,
been through like 5 of them in the 9 years I was on
Okay.
the board.
I remember that circumstance that you're talking about, and how one part of the sales agreement was represented by him and how the town was represented by him, and it was Rich Carroll. But as far as the last 9 years ago, yeah, I don't know.
Well, then I would wonder,
Yeah,
I'm almost positive that it used to be Ancuna, and whatever.
Rob, can you speak to the process you guys in previous boards went about hiring a lawyer? Did you bring them in to talk to them like Sherwood
No.
had suggested, or
Exactly the
just
way
like
that you
this?
got, exactly how you guys are doing it, where the select board administrator went out and gathered some information about it, and we went from there.
Well, we have 2 options, I guess. To hire him and get to know him and ask him these questions, or to not hire him and ask him these questions before we hire him. Are those our 2 options, really? I mean, that I have a lot of faith in Connie that she went over the whole valley looking for attorneys, found 3, and he's really the only one, and was very willing, personable, and got glowing references. So what's the flavor of the board?
I think if there's this potential for a question, we need to find out the answer to that. Because we don't need an issue where now the attorney that you're hiring is representing somebody else that's in a civil action with the town. That
In
gets
the
messy.
past you're talking about.
Clarify that point that Rob
Okay.
brought up, and the only way you're gonna do that is to discuss it with him specifically.
Okay.
If we go ahead and do it sight unseen, we're asking for trouble. Maybe totally innocent, but sight unseen, we're asking for trouble.
Can we make a motion to ask Connie to further?
I think we have to vote on the current motion that's on the table before we move on to any other motions. So if we wanted to, say the board voted this down right now to hire an attorney, then a motion could be made to discuss this further at the next meeting or something like that.
Table it or,
Right.
yeah, table it. Until these questions can be answered.
After you vote it down.
After it's voted down, yeah, we have to vote on the current
So
motion
the
first.
motion, can you read it to us, Connie?
The way that I understood the motion was motion to hire a town attorney.
Okay. And so we never put a name with it?
No.
Okay. So motion, how would we do that then?
So you have to
Say,
vote on the
Hire an
motion.
attorney, just not yet.
yeah. So
I think right now, since
all
you're in
those in
discussion-
favor of hiring an
No,
attorney?
I think all you really need to do is table it, just simply table it, leave the motion open. There's no reason why you can't leave the motion open. And if you put the name in, then I think we would have to vote to close it. But I think you just table it where it stands, and then these questions could be answered, then the motion can be picked back up.
Okay.
I think you'll need a motion to pick the thing back up when you start again, but you can simply, if it's the opinion of the rest of the board, to table it until we have these questions answered, I think we're fine.
Okay. So I move that we table this motion. And we need a second on that?
Can't hurt.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 So, okay. And then we just asked Connie to gather information as per our conversation. So, new business. Request from Select Board, Kate, Jansak Alley. Where can Select Board have discussions? This kind of came up before, and it was trying to get the new board used to the fact that we can't just meet and have, 3 or 4 selectmen together and have discussions, because that's a quorum and it violates the open meeting rules of having the meetings warned and inviting the public and having minutes. So then it does become a question on how can new members to a board specifically and old members, how can we all discuss things so that we're prepared? You had mentioned something before. We're having on the 17th of April, there's an open meeting law that could maybe
VLCT.
it's in the packet, and I had sort of had an idea of having a roundtable meeting every once in a while that we would have to warn and keep minutes of, but it wouldn't be decision making at all. It would be in addition to select board meetings, and it would be where the public could come and hash things over, and like people that want to start a committee to do X, Y, or Z would have the option to share their feelings and feel like part of town, even though they might not want to sit through select board meetings with warrants being read and everything. So those were some. Would you like to talk to what you were speaking to before?
So for my 2 years on the board anyway, my experience of this question is normally, there's a lot of things that go on in terms of writing the budget, those are warned meetings because we welcome members of the public, obviously, but there's a lot of different things that we do in between the meetings to move the business forward that gets put on the agenda for the next meeting. It's not decision making, it's not money spending, it's none of that. The way that I go about it, which I was taught by the people that were on the board previous to me, hit the ground running style, is if I have something that I think needs to be discussed, or or actually just more like a business issue that's going on, I send an email or usually an email, and I include Connie and the other board member or all the board members. They do not recommend within open meeting law to hit reply all ever. You really just want to reply to the person if you're setting up a time for a meeting or something like that. Connie and I just had this experience of setting up something with Brian Post, figuring out time frames, and then letting everyone else in onto that discussion. So mostly, in my opinion, adding Connie in on everything, that's where your record is coming from. But normally for these smaller meetings that we had pretty much across the board, when we would meet up to do the budget or talk about certain things, it was usually just 2 board members. You don't want to have this quorum where you're discussing town business in between. And the 2 board members were always there with Connie present, which is important in my opinion, because she's the great record keeper, but also.
And I agree with that if you keep it to the magic 2.
Right, and it's always 2, right.
Mm-hmm. I agree totally.
2, because you don't want to have that quorum, that's a whole different thing, and you need to warn that meeting if you're going to have a quorum.
The quorum also has, it's not 100% clear. You can't, in general, discuss any business where you're going to raise money, encumber money, or there's one other term that they used in it. And it's just leaves you with a lot of hassles if you go past that too. Now, the first time we did the budget committee, we had 3 of us. But again, Connie was number 4. And that could be covered with the minutes. But you have to make sure in anything that if there's going to be a meeting that discusses town business, whereas there is a potential to raise money, encumber money, release debt, that's the other thing, that is warned properly and the proper notes that are taken. So,
Okay. The impetus behind asking for this to be put on the agenda was a desire. After reading the handbook, I was left with a couple pages of questions, very basic questions about the operation and trying to do my due diligence. For instance, what rules of order do we use? Where do we locate ordinances and any special policies that the select board has created? Very basic operational questions, and I was told that we can't talk to each other outside of the select board meetings, that was a general statement. And so the way to get answers to those questions was to put open discussion on the agenda. So it wasn't to do any of the things that you're mentioning, Sherwood, I understand that. It was really just trying to ask some basic questions that came out of the reading of the handbook.
it's impossible, absolutely impossible, even with a town of 1,300 people, to not communicate. Now, if you read that handbook or you read these regulations, if I have a barbecue at my house and 2 other members of the board are there, then Connie's got to be there because we're a quorum.
And you have
You
to
think
warn
that's going to
it.
happen? No. So that's just ridiculous. The best thing you can do is to err on the side of caution. And if you even think that something is going to delve into business, town business, then you take a step back, you get in touch with Connie, and she'll set up whatever needs to be set up. And then that way, everything flows to her. And even the emails, I mean, for an email, if you write an email and it's sent to all 5 members, and anything in that email has a potential of being a business question for the board, then you can't send it. You have to do the follow the open meeting law and warn that meeting, because responding back and forth is
doing business.
Is accomplishing that task, and that's stepping outside the bounds of this.
I would say right now, until all of us have the seminar under our belt of the open meeting law, that we err on the side of caution, and like Kate, if you have questions, give them to Connie. Connie can put them on the agenda, and we'll all get better at understanding this. We can think about the roundtable meetings, if that would be something the public would like, and we can go from there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, the next item is a cleaner/maintenance personnel for the town hall. We wanted to advertise a position. It would be the casual labor rate of the $17.55. It would most likely be 2 hours a week of town hall, and then some for maintenance. We were looking around and looking at all the stuff around here and saying how it would be nice to do a hoe out and see what we need and what we don't need, and then have a maintenance person that, like, if elections are over, we can bring all the things downstairs and store them downstairs instead of it looking like a garage sale here. So that we'll do that, Connie.
The idea would be that we would post it, right? That's what Kate, I think Allie is suggesting, that if we decide to go ahead with this, we would post it for interested people, because we don't currently have anybody who's interested in doing it.
Wasn't Rob Swagger posting jobs for us before? Wasn't he doing that?
I don't know, and
He
he's
did on
gone.
LinkedIn, but there's,
No, I mean, maybe somebody
Oh,
can take that over.
yeah.
Not me, I'm not a good
but I think
computer
you can do
person.
it on Front Porch Forum, you can do it on the
say
Facebook,
that,
and
you
then
just
in the 3 areas.
No, I mean, like with like crowdsourcing information like that.
So do we need a motion to ask Connie to do that?
Or a motion to create the position and
Mhm.
move forward with it, I would think.
I'd like to make a motion to create a position of cleaner and maintenance personnel for town hall and to allow Connie to post that position where it needs to be posted in order to attract a candidate.
Second.
All those in favor?
Wait, do we have discussion?
Discussion?
I just wanted to know, how was this accomplished before?
This way. I mean, when we hired the last cleaning person, right? This is what
My
we did.
recollection was that Anita was doing it, and there was a decision not to have her do it anymore. At the time, Eddie Benoit, who was over the transfer station, expressed an interest of getting more hours. So he was given more hours to do cleaning, both at the garage and here at Town Hall. He then said that, it didn't work out with Eddie. And so we then went to the person who was cleaning the library and asked them for more, if they were interested in more hours. She said yes. So we added more hours to her to clean. She recently said it was too much for her, and that's when we lost the cleaner.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion, a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. VTrans Certificate.
These are yearly certificates that we need to file with VTrans to be a part of their program, which is a grant program for the roads. Jeremy and I met with a representative from VTrans, and she helped us put together the highway financial plan based on our fiscal year 25 budget. And she was quite helpful, but the select board needs to sign and we need to send back.
And do you have, this is it right here?
Yep.
We have discussion on this?
So I make a motion that we sign the VTrans for,
It's a certificate of compliance and then the annual financial plan for the highway.
and are we going to do the signing right now?
If you all agree.
Okay, so I
But I
make
think
a,
Allie, not Allie, Kate may have had a question. Did you have a question or a comment?
Yes, this is the town road bridge standards inventory item.
Yes.
Okay, so as I read it, it seems to indicate that we currently do not have a current inventory of bridges and culverts and their conditions, and et cetera. Is that accurate?
It's not checked either way. I think that's
I believe that we do have an inventory, but it has to be updated with the state.
Yearly.
And
Okay, so is that something that is automatically going to be in process at some point? I'm just curious because they're signing something and it has we do or do not have this in a current inventory, and there's nothing indicated there, yes or no, so we're signing something and we don't, just asking what we're signing.
We do have an inventory of the,
Bridges and culverts.
and your bridges and culverts. We have an inventory.
Not a current one, but it is coming.
Right. They are, the state,
This is totally separate. These are certificates that the state requires us to fill out and submit every year regardless.
but what she's saying, Jeremy, is that it says we do have or we do not have an up-to-date highway network inventory.
Yeah.
And we're signing this, so Is this
I'm
something,
asking if we have an updated one.
he's saying we have one, but it's not current, so I would say we do not have an up-to-date.
Then we need to indicate that before we sign it.
We do have one, the state is in the process of updating it, which
Correct.
includes.
It's coming, there's one that needs to be done soon,
Yeah.
so.
So how would we check?
We would.
As far as the state's concerned, it is
Yeah.
current.
Okay.
It's
Okay,
just, they're changing some stuff and we will be required to do another one shortly.
Yeah, so we do.
Within the coming
check it
years.
As we do.
okay. And you have papers that we're gonna sign, or did we
I
sign?
think there is the.
Right here?
Yeah,
And I can check due?
yeah. And then the financial plan also gets submitted, we sign it in the second page.
I'm assuming some of these can sign from you remotely?
No.
Kate, you have to come in.
Okay, I'll come back. I'll be there a couple days.
We have to,
Okay.
There's a motion
Sure,
on the
would you
table,
like
or
to sign?
I think there's a motion to sign it.
yeah, right, so should we
But I'm not
vote?
sure anybody seconded.
I'll second.
All right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Our signatures will show.
Yeah.
There's two sign-offs here.
Yeah,
As long as there's 3 people that sign it, she doesn't need to come down just to sign this.
okay. So now we move on to tobacco license, followed by restaurant bar license and outside consumption permit. Basically, these are,
I think one's for Harmonyville and
Yeah.
2 are for West River. What the chair has done in the past is to ask the board if there is any known problem that anybody has experienced before you guys decide to sign.
and there's no place for signature. I understand we just kind of give our signature on said document.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the tobacco license for the Harmonyville store.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
So I think this is where we have discussion, ask if there's any issue before, which I have never heard of any issue with Harmonyville.
I've also never heard.
Any discussion then? All those in favor?
Aye.
So. And I'll pass them around in a lump at the end. Then the second one is a first-class restaurant bar license for the West River Community Project in West Townsend. So I make a motion to sign this. Second?
Seconded.
Second.
And discussion?
Is that 1 or 2 documents? Because one was an outside consumption.
They're 2 documents, I haven't gotten to the third one. This one is just a restaurant / bar, so no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is that 5-0?
Okay, and then I make a motion that we approve the West River Community Project outside consumption permit.
Second.
And any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
These two, you're gonna have to sign off, everybody's gonna have to sign off on,
On all three of them,
all
right?
three of them.
Yeah.
All right. You have to re-sign these on the bottoms of the ones that I signed. Otherwise, they're not gonna figure out where it is that they're approved or not approved.
You're welcome.
I think we're on new business G.
We are. I was gonna wait until
Oh,
they
I'm
just
sorry.
signed.
Okay.
I figured it's not fair for me to have them be signing and looking and then talking about the next. Okay, and as Connie has reminded us, we're up to G. And do we
That
need,
needs to be my request.
right, do we need a motion for this one as well? That we're spending money, so I would
I think we
assume
should,
so.
yeah.
I make a motion that we allow Connie to meet with the auditor for up to a half hour, did we say? In reference to,
This is in reference to the true balance report.
okay, in reference to the true balance report.
Second.
And, okay, open for discussion,
Has there
any?
been any problem with that?
Well, we put together that report, we ran with that report for about a year and a half. The treasurer had a conversation with the auditor, came back and said that something needed to be changed. And I just would like to get the auditor's opinion on that, because I think the report is good. So, but I want to just make sure the auditor looks at the formulas, so that we are correct.
And could we maybe include with that the auditor knowing that next time they tell somebody something should happen, that we get it in writing? So that we as a town would know, not just from somebody telling us their interpretation of the conversation. So,
Is this discussion still open, correct?
yes.
I would also like to ask Connie, to ask the auditor regarding requests made at the town meeting, that the auditor's report contains simply a statement of finding. In other words, that the audit was completed and there were no, and it all appears to be in good order, or no negative findings were found, or something along an opinion, short of a summary.
Yep, so Allie, we have that, so we have that 3-page letter. We just chose not to put it in the town report, but we made the decision to put it in next year's town report.
And it was brought to a select board meeting last year after the report was created, and we discussed it. It was in our packet and warned for the meeting, and we discussed it at the meeting, and everyone was able to read through it.
And we have an auditor's report that is quite lengthy, but you're welcome to look at it in detail.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other conversation? Then I would, we'll vote on the motion. I would approve Connie speaking to the auditors for up to a half hour regarding the true balance report. And a second?
Katie had already said that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think we just gotta vote now.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we're up to Mr. Z.
Been asked to give a proposal for our improved equipment fund. We've been approved for $200,000 in the capital fund to purchase some new equipment. The question at hand is, when will that money be available? Which puts us in a little bit of a predicament with our current equipment being in the state that it is in. Something needs to happen sooner than later. I've gotten 3 competitive quotes on the purchase of a new excavator. I've been asked to get some numbers for repair, replace, lease, or rent of a backhoe to get us through, or whether it be feasible just to go ahead and purchase, lease, whatever. At this time, Allie and it's been brought to my attention that maybe we can take this money and use it. There are lease options out there that would allow us to purchase 2 new pieces of equipment at the same time.
To lease
both the excavator and the backhoe for a reasonable, it's a 5-year plan, annual payments of whatever. I have numbers and I got more coming. When it gets us into the equipment that we need to do the job that we are facing through the next 10 to 15 years. The state's requiring us to do all this stone line ditching and just all this other stuff. We have, over the years, a lot of the storm damage has been caused by just the lack of upgrading our culverts. And, you know, my plan for the next couple of summers is to try to get as much of that done as I can, but I can't do that unless I have the proper equipment to do the job. So, everybody has a sheet, got numbers on it. So I'm asking that we make a decision on that sooner than later. Lead times on equipment are lengthy, months.
Jeremy, if it's leased, when are they gonna want the first payment?
First payment will be due upon receipt of the vehicle.
Okay.
And then it would be, so basically your down payment would be your first payment, and then it's 1 payment a year for the next 5 years, and then you have the option that you could keep leasing a new piece of equipment every 5 years, or you could purchase that piece of equipment for $1 at the end of the lease. So I don't think that'll be necessary to, you know, turn over the equipment. I mean, the backhoe has been used a lot more than it's really designed for in the last 5 years since I've been on the road crew, and that's the reason that it's worn out, it's tired, it's old. This machine is 16 years old. I've gotten prices to have it refurbished, and it does, in my opinion, does not make sense to put that kind of money into a 16-year-old machine. And so we are kind of getting down to crunch time with summer coming on pretty fast, so I'm asking that we.
What is the lead time, or, excuse me, what is the lead time on getting the equipment? If you
I've
could
been
put it
told-
on today, when would you get it?
I've been told by John Deere 6 weeks. I'm not sure about the other ones. Excavators are a little more readily available. Again, it's the question of when that money that we approved at town meeting is available, so.
Technically, it's July 1.
Right, but I've been told that it needs to be collected first, so.
That's
There's
not
some gray matter,
particularly
there's some gray
true.
area there.
Could I ask that we discuss, there seem to be two different pieces of equipment here at question. One is the excavator and the other is the backhoe proposal. Jeremy poses a question in one of the columns on the information about the excavator, about whether we should buy the least expensive one or should we use additional criteria. I think that's worth discussion. And then regarding the backhoe, I just would like to separate them out because I think there are things that at least I would like to have clarified.
What is she asking? I'm sorry, I didn't catch all that. What are you asking, Kate, exactly?
Just saying that if we could have a discussion that on one piece of equipment and then a discussion on the other so that we're not mixing and matching, if I have that right, Kate?
Yes.
We also don't have the information that you and I discussed right before the meeting, Jeremy, about possibly doing a lease for the excavator, so we don't have.
Those, I have numbers on the purchase prices, I don't have.
Right,
numbers on
but
the
you can
prices.
get those.
Yes, I will I have all my sales reps on speed dial, so.
Okay.
And I've signed this up for a company called Sourcewell. It's a government purchasing agency. It gets us the best possible price for any piece of equipment out there, so. I don't think there's a fee, I haven't heard of a fee, it's something that my father uses, as most of you know, he's a road foreman in Guilford, he has been for 40 years.
Okay.
So I have pretty good insight on how the best way to go about this is.
Good. Regarding the excavator, I think you did pose a question of should we just buy the least expensive one or use additional criteria? And I think that additional criteria such as the quality and our maintenance capabilities, like John Deere versus Kubota, that I think we do need additional criteria. I don't think we should just get the least expensive one, because if we get the least expensive one and then can't maintain it, then it's not an economy.
Right, so that's why the only quotes I've gotten are John Deere, Cat, and Kubota, because they are the least, or the most readily available service departments around. All other brands are either in New York or New Hampshire. Most of, John Deere is right up the road in Springfield, Vermont. Cat is up in northern Vermont.
And Kubota's across the river.
Across the river or in Plainfield, New Hampshire, depending on which dealer we So.
But what about if we have you come back next meeting and give us the lease?
I could, I'll get right on that. I can get those numbers. Hopefully the sales guys can turn it around that quick for me.
Mm-hmm.
They've been pretty good, everyone I've talked to so far, so.
Good.
But that was my
And
question, was
just one other
which is
question.
the timeline?
And this is, can I ask it now?
Go ahead.
Okay, it's regarding the backhoe proposal, and the quotes you get there for the repairs are from United Construction. And I'm just asking, is there any way that United Construction would benefit in any way if we were to purchase a new backhoe rather than repair it? Do they have beneficiary in any way of the decision?
I don't see the benefit. I mean, yeah, they want to sell equipment. I don't think, like I said earlier, putting money into a 16-year-old machine is not a proper way to go, especially in the conditions it's in.
I think what you and I had discussed that is if the money's not available until July 1st, will our backhoe be safe and operable from now until July 1st? even if we order a new backhoe on a lease or a purchase or however we decide to do it, will we get away without the repairs until July 1st? And we know it's serious, and that's why we're,
You want the truth?
yeah.
We shouldn't be using it right now. So,
What's wrong with it?
you name it, Bob. There's $45,000 worth of repairs that needs to be done.
Is it unsafe, are the brakes not holding, I mean, what's
Our
the?
service brakes work, park brake doesn't. Every piston on the thing is leaking, even the ones we just had repaired. There's slop in every pivot point, the only reason I'm still using it is because it's the only machine I have right now to do the job that I need to do.
How many hours are on it?
70, just about 7,500, I think.
Just a general question.
If it's not safe, we really shouldn't be using it. The parking brake, I mean, is that something that can be done at an affordable price?
I'm guessing probably like $8,000 to $10,000. You gotta split the machine and have to do it.
Yeah, okay, I got it.
Never mind.
I got it.
I just have a general question. Have we looked into the state treasury department municipal equipment loan funds? That is something that apparently is just like a 2% interest loan that's for municipal equipment projects like these.
I haven't, I don't know where to start with that, because this is new to me too, so, I mean,
We
with the
have in the
Sourcewell
past.
company, it's the company that a lot of towns are using. It's the best possible price you can get whether you purchase it, so.
Yeah, just something to consider if we're looking at this option.
Municipalities get a decent discount, like a significant discount, so it's not like, most of those guys aren't trying to, pull it over.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at the lease
Lease
estimate.
versus purchase.
If we were to lease it, that's,
I think
the total was like 193,000 or something versus
it
the
does
purchase
cost
price.
you more in the long run, but it is
So-
a cheaper way of, a more effective, getting more equipment.
We could look into that.
And I think for the lease that Bill had done up for me for the John Deere backhoe, he put a 7% rate. He put that number in high, so I don't think it's that number.
Yeah, just a conservative.
That, these are all ballpark numbers that I've gotten because, who wants to put all that time into a bid like that if they don't know what they're gonna get?
Yeah.
So they gave us ballparks and, once we get serious and say, hey, send out our spec sheets, this is what we want, and they'll start fighting for it, so.
So we will put this on the agenda for next meeting.
I think the 2% is what the city usually gives.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is, I haven't learned about.
Yeah, no, I was just reading about it today, so I just wanted to bring it up in case we hadn't. But
Seems like something to check into for the future, for sure, right?
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
So Connie, do we have a motion on the floor?
No motion.
No motion. So then we can just move on.
But if we could just be clear, so the goal is to come to next select board meeting with information on the loan program, on the leasing of 2 pieces of equipment.
Good.
I agree. A decision sooner rather than later is really important.
Right.
But yeah,
And
Otherwise,
so,
I'm gonna have guys standing around, so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so much stuff to do without.
we don't have enough shovels, right?
or wheelbarrows.
Okay, we're on to hazard mitigation plan, select board point person.
So you'll see in the select board packet that there is an email from Windham Regional. In the fall, we put out the bid because we had received a grant for a consultant to help us update our hazard mitigation plan. In the fall, we selected Windham Regional, and she has reached out to us and said she's now ready for the next step. And the first thing is to find out who on the select board is going to work with me on that, and then to begin that process, basically by meeting with her.
Okay. Let's wait until Katie gets back from the restroom.
May I say something? It's got nothing to do with anything that you're doing right now.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that it's really wonderful to see all of you trying so hard to address the things that were brought up to your attention at town meeting, and that you're working so diligently to learn how to do this. It's like, it's good to see.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Do we need a motion to discuss this? Or
I don't think so. I think I'm just looking for somebody
to be a point person?
To be a point person working with me.
Here she is. That's okay. Nature calls. So we're just looking for a select board point person for hazard mitigation plan. And I didn't know if there was anybody that had that as a desire.
Is there anybody on the select board that has knowledge of what is entailed with a hazard mitigation plan?
Yeah, there is.
Could you share your knowledge?
Sure. State requires every 5 years that every community in Vermont has a hazardous mitigation plan. If you do not do it, they will take away 10% of any matching grant funds from the state and or the federal government. Which, when you're talking these storms, when you're talking $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, 10% is a decent amount of money. There are 4 avenues that have to be covered: hazardous mitigation plan, local emergency management plan, the town plan, and there's one other.
Floodplain.
Floodplain, yes. And they all have to be done on time, or we lose out on those funds. Unfortunately, we have lapsed 2 years? No, 3 years. 3 years, when we had, almost 3 years ago, when we had the July storm, we found out that the plan had lapsed, and we had to wait for FEMA to come up with this grant funding to make the thing whole. But there's still 3 others that have to be dealt with.
So you say we're not current on our hazard mitigation plan right now, and we're lapsed 3 years, we're 3 years past when we're supposed to be current again.
We have another storm, the way we had last July, this July, we'll lose funds again.
So we have an extant plan, but it is not up to date.
It's totally expired. There's nothing you can do to bring that into temporary validation. It's gone.
Connie, you are working with someone on it, and you only are requesting a point person from, do you want to talk to us about what you're doing to work on it?
Well, basically what we did is the state offers grant money to hire a consultant to write your plan for you. And so we did that process. We, in the fall, picked a contractor to write our plan, and it will cost us a few thousand, but majority of it will be paid for by this grant. And that's the Windham Regional Commission. And so we have till 2025 to do it, but September of 2025. But she needs to get moving on her thing. So she's ready to go to start the process of meeting, putting together a informational session to, she has certain steps for her to do that.
So the select board has approved that process. All you're asking for here is a board liaison point person. Is anybody interested?
Well, I have another question for Connie.
Okay.
what are the competencies that are needed on the part of the select board member? In other words, do we need to be civil engineers or?
I don't think that there's an expectation that elected officials are experts in this area. I think they work closely with us. We already have a plan, so that a lot of it will be updating the plan that we had. So I don't hear that there's any particular skill set that's needed.
And reporting back to the select board.
Yeah.
It's all written by Windham Regional Commission.
Okay, anybody have a desire to be the point person?
I'll jump in.
Okay, you're gonna do everything, Nick. Thank you. The Highway Department Select Board Liaison. This was a position in the past that has been done formally or informally, and it's just a good way of somebody that has some road knowledge and some time to pop in and check in how things are going, to then report back to the select board as well. Be a support to Jeremy, which I think he feels very supported by Connie, but it would be good for him to have a person on the board. I'm happy to do it unless anybody else would like to do it.
I'm happy to do it. I've been trying to learn more about the
Okay,
roads and the
so then I'll
culverts and
defer to
things like
you
that.
and.
Is that all right?
Yeah,
Okay.
of course it is.
I don't know very much about it, but I've been trying to learn about the different things for the highway, so I'd like to do that job.
Great.
So.
Thank you.
And then action items discussion. I sort of discussed before about the roundtable meeting. I think we'll hold off on that idea, let people think about it, and we'll get the seminar under our belts as far as the open meeting law. The elementary school request regarding the common road.
So that came in recently. I think it also came to Jeremy. I guess there was a time when during recess, they closed Common Road for the kids to be able to safely play out there, and they are requesting that again.
And I have some historic recollection that it happened one time before, and I'm all over kids' safety, but because it was a town road and we collected town highway funds for it, that we weren't allowed to do it. I don't know if that's changed.
That's not my reading of the, in my reading of the rules, it seemed like this is within our
If
jurisdiction.
it's a state road, you can't do it without state permission. If it's town road,
Yeah.
you can shut it.
Okay,
I think also given that they don't have the best playground over there right now, and they do cross to go on the common.
of course, yeah,
like,
they always
every day.
have, yeah.
I
I mean, I'm all for it. you know,
Yeah.
But I just question that.
This may be appropriate for the motion,
All right, so
and then discuss.
I'll make a motion to block off the road, the town common road, during recess. I would assume it would be something the school would be responsible for, putting up postings and taking them down at the appropriate times. And I guess that's my motion.
My second.
One part of the discussion point, you're gonna have to buy some signs. They're gonna have to be legally valid signs. You can't have a stop sign that's the size of a watermelon. It has to have the what's prescribed. Jeremy has the book for all signs, so, but it's not something you can spray paint road closed on.
Yeah,
Is that something the town needs to purchase, or could we amend the motion to say that the school should get the signs?
If it's the school that's asking for it, they can pay for it. We can facilitate it, but, yeah, they can buy it.
I'd like to amend the motion to require the school to purchase the correct legal signs with some guidance from the town for closing off the common road during recess.
Is there a second?
Second that.
So one thing I just want to say is that we don't have the specific days and times. During recesses are really vague, so that's just my only hesitation on approving it as is. But again, I am in support of doing so.
trying to think.
It's recess, Nick. Don't you know when that is?
Yeah, it could be any
It
time.
could be in 5 minutes.
Especially if we're going to, if the town is putting up signs, that's definitely something we want to have. But even if it's the school, we just want to make sure that that is really clear.
Should we amend it again, or? No, you'll just tell the school that they need to supply us with times.
Well, you should have some direction as to what time they go up and what time they go down.
Right, that's what meant by times. So,
My understanding is that you vote on the motion and then the amendment, then you vote on the amendment and then whether or not to approve the amendment to the motion, and then you vote on the motion.
so you made the amendment.
Would you second it?
I seconded
So you're
it.
voting
So
on the
all
amendment.
those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay. And now we vote on the motion to approve the school common road be closed during recess hours with the amendment.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Did everybody vote? Okay, I couldn't.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And then the final one is Grace Cottage Town Hall use request, Tai Chi class.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Grace Cottage Town Hall use request for a Tai Chi for Grace Cottage on ongoing Tai Chi wellness class Fridays 9 to 10 a.m.
Second.
Any discussion?
Will you shoot me if I say something? There's been a lot of use of the town hall and the common where people have not, the fee has been waived. There is a policy in effect, as far as I know still. It hasn't been revised, it hasn't been changed. That required a fee, so that, I think that means that every time you all want to have someone use it, if you don't want them to pay the fee, then it has to be voted on. And I know my opinions aren't very popular, but I think that if a building is being used and utilities are being used and, you know, people are coming in and out and all that sort of thing, then people should be willing to pay their share of the cost of using the facility. So, and I'm assuming they'd have to have it upstairs. What day is it? Fridays?
Fridays from 9 to 10 a.m.
Yeah, so they'd have to have it upstairs. Hopefully if they can do Tai Chi, they can climb stairs, I guess.
Right, well, if we had to heat it as well.
Yeah, so, you know, every time, call me cheap, but my taxes are pretty high, and every time people are using the utilities, they add up over the course of a year, and the taxpayers are footing the bill.
Are they requesting, Connie, do you know, are they requesting a waiver of the fee?
I don't believe they.
I don't think they addressed that. They did include a liability policy, which is good.
I think so, the select board's been determining whether it's a fee.
So we can make an amendment to discuss the fee with them?
Well, right now, you're just voting whether or not to approve it, but you're saying,
That we don't have enough clarification whether they're willing to pay a fee as per our town hall policy.
I think it's a larger discussion as well, because you would then be considering whether they were paying a fee every time they used it, or once a month, or one fee for the whole usage of it. So,
And that's why it's worth a discussion.
yeah.
They did say something about free to town members, and which was nice that they're supporting our community. But I just don't think we have enough information really to vote on it yet. Especially if we have to heat upstairs and it goes on all year, it gets pretty cold up there.
think you need to address this with some sort of a contract for long-term usage. This form and the policy is not for what we're talking about. It's for the occasional use of things, whether it be the common or the building. It never was intended for long-term use. So I think you need to table this matter until some form of contract with them that includes their insurance, that includes what they're going to pay, includes all of the things that are going to become a sticking point as people get ugly about it.
So if they want to come back to us with all of those things, we can entertain it. And are you suggesting that we look at the policy again and rework the policy?
I think the policy is in flux anyways, because it's something that there were always too many things in front of us to get done with before. I think this would maybe a good exercise of the new lawyer, if and when he comes, to write a simple contract so everything is spelled out. It's all spelled out. There's nobody that can misinterpret it and deal with it that way.
And this answers a question that came up before about what needs to be in the policy for the town hall, upstairs, downstairs, and the common, to what kind of details do we need in there. At that time, when Phoebe was working on it, we didn't even have anyone trying to use the space consecutively or for long periods of time. So I do think that if somebody wanted to pick back up on that, what happened was Phoebe had to leave the board because she moved out of town, and she was the one that had taken on that task of working on the use policy, and she put a bunch of time into that, and then it got handed to me, but then we were working on the budget, and we didn't, we've talked about it a few times, but we didn't fully go back in on it.
This is also something that isn't new. There was a couple that came in that wanted to have their ballet classes upstairs.
Yeah.
And that was going into an entirely new arena, nothing that we had ever dealt with before. So this is kind of brushing up against that, only in the fact that it's an outside entity with long-term goals. In that particular case, they were operating a business. They wanted to charge a fee to keep their stuff here, and that kind of dropped because they dropped the ball with it and moved to Londonderry. So, I mean, I don't think we should be in the business of renting town property for long-term use unless we're very well insulated and protected from it. If somebody's going to make money, they need to pay for the services that they're getting out of the town. If somebody that is coming in here because the 100th birthday party for their father, grandfather, whatever, and they've lived in town all their life, I don't think that fees are necessary. It's kind of ridiculous. But this particular thing moves the bubble a little bit more in that we're going into rental agreements, which we've never done before.
I think for me, I'm not able to completely work on the policy myself as I was considering doing before, but I wouldn't mind meeting with someone else on the board that's interested in taking this on and bringing them up to date on the information that I have that was shared to me through the town clerk and through Phoebe, the previous member of the board.
It doesn't have to be somebody from the board, just like we have the gazebo committee. Right. It could be other interested parties. Mm-hmm. I know that Alenka really wants to increase the use and the visibility of our beautiful town hall. Mm-hmm. And she could be somebody on it, or somebody from the school that uses it for the plays, etc. And it doesn't have to always be one of the five of us. Yeah. Just a comment.
Yeah.
Because I don't want Nick to have to do another job.
Who's that going to be me?
I know, I'm teasing you. All right, any further discussion?
Well, is Alenka interested in doing that?
Alenka is not here. I did that as a maybe. She was here and left.
It's my understanding that Alenka is very interested in creating a town and common use policy that reflects the information that we need and is reasonable to the people who want to use it. So I think she may be interested. I don't think that she's necessarily has thought about a contract, like I think somebody else would have to take that.
And it might be a good time to get the new lawyer on board to do something, and we could see what he's made of, you know?
So even
Well, happy to discuss it with Alenka and see how and if the select board needs to be involved or where things stand, and to gauge her level of interest in working on the policy.
So I just heard that Kate is volunteering to discuss with Alenka, working on the policy.
Right.
Correct.
Now, which Kate though?
Kate.
Kate, the Jansak.
Okay. Because I thought you had said you would do it.
I
but-
said I would fill people in on what I know
Oh,
so
okay.
far and
So
some of
you'll-
the notes from meeting
I
with
see, okay.
Phoebe and Sherwood about it last year.
What's the response, what we replying to Crystal Mansfield, I think?
I think the recommendation sort of out there was that we table it till next time because we don't have enough
Long-term
information
policy.
on the fee or how that would work.
Right.
You were gonna find out if they were willing to pay a fee, and we were gonna work on our policy. I don't think we ever,
And then the issue got raised about a contract, which is different than the policy. That's what I'm raising.
I think they're two separate things.
Yeah.
Policy is short-term rental, one
Right,
time.
Right, so that's why I'm asking what.
This is long-term.
Right,
Yeah.
so that's why that got raised. And is that something that's?
does it have to be two separate things? Because you could have a policy and then a clause in there could say if it's more than X amount of weeks in an ongoing fashion, and you could address it in the same policy, you know, check the box type, you know, a one-off or a weekly occurrence. And I think it should be something that's looked over by the lawyer to show that we are covered. And like what type of insurance, you know, I look at this and say, oh, it looks good, you know, but what do I know about a piece of paper talking about insurance, you know?
Again, I'm willing to liaison with both Alenka and Katie to find out what work was done and to find out what Alenka's level of interest is, and then to report back to the select board perhaps as to whether it are two separate things or if they can be handled as one thing.
Okay, so basically we're going to table the decision. Connie's going to find out what, if anything, these people were willing to pay, since it was not stated. And we're gonna start a small committee with Kate J. and Alenka, assisted by KDM, to research the town hall policy.
That sounds accurate to me.
Did we have a motion or no? Yes, we
We
did.
just tabled it.
We just tabled it, so that's
Yeah.
debating. Okay, and I think we're at the end, unless anybody had anything further. Our next meeting is April 9th. So,
Yes.
So motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.